Hey everybody, welcome to Narrative Live. It's our second start for tonight's show. If you somehow saw the first one, it's been that kind of day, and it's really a big day news-wise. Hello, Tracy McElroy. How are you?
I'm doing great, Zeb. Thank you for asking.
Today's one of those days where I don't know what your family gatherings are like, and mine aren't always like this. But sometimes when my family gets together, for like a holiday lunch or something like that, everyone comes in with really good intentions, and it lands up ending very differently with people, leaving, screaming, yelling, drinking too much. That was what it felt today. Felt like you had mom and dad arriving at the White House. The two couldn't make up. Throwing each other out, standing in front of posters, making all these terrible accusations and claims against each other. It was that kind
I
of day
think
in
this has
America.
been a lot of Thanksgiving and Christmas dinners since the 2016 election.
It's true. So maybe this is the beginning of the end. This is the reconciliation. It's finally happening. We have a big show tonight. So much big news. We had to work extra hard to cram it all in the amount of time we have for you tonight. And we're going to start off, as we always do, on the starting block. And we're calling this segment, quite
it,
appropriately.
it it's fantastic. Just show it. It's Donald and the terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day.
Which is a
And
movie and a
shout out
book.
to all the moms and dads out there who know what this is in reference to.
This little fellow on the right here, he certainly does embody a little Trumpiness in him. Whoever he is, obviously it's not Donald, but it wasn't really not a very good day for Donald Trump. I mean, in every which way, things went terribly for Donald Trump today. And I don't want to smile through someone's bad luck, as it were, but we might as well smile because it's a good day for us. And we're going to
Well, it
talk.
is our job here at Narrative to expose the truth about Donald Trump and his administration. So
And it's even better
it's a
when
good
he
day.
exposes the truth for us, which we'll tell you about later.
Exactly right.
So, three big stories in the news that would have made Donald's horrible day. And let's begin with this one. This comes out of New York City or New York State, where they are now thinking they can get their hands on Donald Trump's tax returns.
Right. Actually, if you guys have been following me, you know that I've been reporting a lot on what's been going on in New York State for the past 2 years. And today they passed a law which allows them to hand over Donald Trump's state income taxes to Congress.
So, that's significant because it means that they could be similar to what the federal income taxes were. Is that a good assessment to make or an assumption to make?
I think that's a very good assessment.
So, Donald, we're getting your taxes, even if you lost money, as you apparently did through all those years. Now, the second big story of the day that would have made Donald Trump's day not so fabulous was this one, or even this one, as I try to put it up. This had to do with Deutsche Bank.
Yeah, so the judge ruled today that Deutsche Bank and I believe it was Capital One as well, Zim, they can give their financial records to the Democrats who have subpoenaed them. And what's interesting about this is it's not just Donald Trump's, but it's also his kids and Kushner's financial records.
This is really big and bad news for them because there's a lot of dirty secrets in those bank accounts by all accounts. For a while there, we were thinking he was indebted to them by a tremendous amount, and somehow he didn't have to pay that debt. But there's certainly some bad dealings in there, and there's got to be a fair amount of clear money laundering that was done and probably was flagged, as we heard from a former Deutsche Bank employee, that they knew about and ignored. So, looking forward to finding out the results of those when they get handed over to Congress. And the third big story of the day that would have made Donald Trump's really, really, really horrible, no good, very, very bad day was the fact that the House Justice Department and the Intelligence Committee agreed that they were going to get the counterintelligence reports that were much wanted by Adam Schiff. You've seen the photograph over there.
Right, and Rep. Adam Schiff, he said as soon as possible. So they're going to start getting some of that counterintelligence information as soon as this week. And what's really important about that is because he has expressed his concern of whether there actually still is a counterintelligence investigation going on. And it looks like he's going to get those answers finally. This also ties back to that Deutsche Bank ruling today because the judge specifically said that the reason that Congress can have this is because they need to know if there are any foreign influences on Trump and his family.
And it's interesting how things happen today because we got a lot of information from Michael Cohen and the search warrant that was used to raid his office and apartment. And we're going to give you some really exclusive and interesting details about what was found in those search warrants coming up in the show. But first, what a day it was between Nancy Pelosi and Donald Trump. We don't have to hear it twice. We like it the first time so much. I was going to play Nancy Pelosi before actually saying this, but we were talking yesterday on the show how important it was that the uh, the investigations and the tone of everyone's remarks were going from past tense to present tense. The people were no longer talking about what was happening by Donald Trump before Mueller. They were now talking about what he's doing today with the obstruction, the witness tampering, the suborning, perjury, all those funny expressions they use in the law. And today, it seems that Nancy Pelosi picked up on some of those themes when she spoke to a crowd. Let's take a listen to this.
Why I think the president was so steamed off this morning, because the fact is, in plain sight, in the public domain, this president is obstructing justice and he's engaged in a cover-up. And that could be an impeachable offense. Ignoring the subpoenas of Congress was Article 3 of the Nixon impeachment. Article 3. He did not honor the subpoenas of Congress. So it's not just the substance that we're after and we want to have to give the truth to the American people. But in striving to get that, the intervention that the obstruction that the administration is engaged in is, as they say, the cover-up is frequently worse than the crime.
It's interesting. A lot of people are pointing out that you can't really be in plain sight and be obstructing justice. But he has managed to do this incredible feat of actually doing something in public while illegal and hiding it. And if anyone can do it, probably Donald Trump can. But it sure looks to me like Nancy Pelosi has flipped the script a little bit on everybody today.
Yeah, Zeb, I watched most of that interview, and that's a short clip of what is actually almost a half an hour long interview. And I encourage everybody to watch it because she gives a pretty good explanation of her thinking on impeachment. She spends a lot of time discussing Schiff and Cummings and all of their subpoenas, and that the judges are ruling in their favor. And now they're getting all this evidence that they can evaluate while going forward in what may be an impeachment process. So I would encourage everybody to watch it.
That's a really good point, and it's because they're building the case regardless of whether they declare an impeachment proceeding happening now or whether they wait. However,
exactly.
I do think that once they do say they're in an impeachment process, they have a higher right in terms of getting grand jury evidence, which is one of the things they're trying to get out of the Mueller report or the Mueller findings, which is being stonewalled. But other than that, she's got a point. We can do this without calling it impeachment until we're ready to do it. Earlier in the day, she made the pronouncement that it was, in fact, a cover-up that she thought the President of the United States was engaging in. Now, we said that a few weeks ago, but she said it, and then she went to a meeting at the White House. Which is,
she did.
She is a very, very brave person because regardless of who it is, you don't want to be walking into the White House, President of the United States, leader of the free so-called world, and walk into it having declared that he is committing a felony. But she did.
She wasn't lying, though.
She ain't lying. That woman is not lying. And I think the President of the United States, he knows that. Take a listen to how he reacted.
Phone calls that my son made to me from this meeting that was set up by GPS Fusion, it looks like, which is the other side for those that don't know. And for a year, I heard about phone calls went to a special number, unauthorized. And it would have been my son, Don, who's a good young man, who's gone through hell. And they were calls that must have been made by him before and after the meeting, 3 calls. After massive study and work, they actually found who made the calls. One was a friend of ours, a real estate developer. Great guy, most of you know him, nice guy, loves our country. And the other one was the head of NASCAR, 2 of them. So of the 3 calls that were so horrible, that he had a meeting and he called me, and then he had the meeting after, and he made 2 more calls, and they were written about like this little lines, couple of lines. Nobody wanted to admit it.
Did I hear him correctly
You
confess
did.
that
You
there was
did.
a call?
That's
To him
an
by
oops
Donald Trump
moment
Jr.?
That will go down in history. You did. He's denied all along that he knew ahead of time of the, adoption, so-called
Yeah,
adoption
and he says he got a
meetings.
call right
So,
afterwards. Is that what he's saying in that clip? It sounds like he's saying that, which is not at
yeah,
all
I think
what was known
he's
before.
he is confirming that he may have been one of those 3 phone calls that was being investigated.
So
So
that is hilarious.
either he's lost his mind or he just,
It's one
screwed
good
up.
way to deny a cover-up by confessing a cover-up. I mean, that's good for him for doing that today. As I said, it's
you
terrible,
did-
horrible, very bad day.
The point of this press conference, if that's what you want to call it, was supposedly he was so upset about these comments of a cover up, but miraculously they had all these props and all these talking points already ready to go. So
It
I
was
don't
a
know.
stunt.
Sam.
It was clearly a stunt, and they thought they were going to trap Nancy Pelosi and Schumer in this trap, and it backfired as it always does because you can't catch those two. And you landed up with Donald Trump confessing to something he shouldn't have done if he was going to be as consistent a liar as he likes to be. But he's the thrust of what he was trying to do there was an infrastructure deal, like a big infrastructure deal for Americans, so we could have new roads and bridges and broadband and everything that you need in this country. And he appears to think that his personal freedom, liberty, and guilt or no guilt is more important than the thing he's there to do, which is build things for the people and invest their money in useful ways. This is taxpayer money that he's administering. We're allowing him to do it, but it's not his money. He can't. It's not like he can walk away from the deal because he wants to be, proved innocent or cleared for the rest of his life. It's just so typical of this man, and I think it's why so many people are getting so frustrated with him. I'm glad Nancy taught him a lesson today, because I think she walked out of there and did a very, very impressive press conference right afterwards, when she was like,
Yes.
he can't rise to the office, or he can't achieve the greatness of an infrastructure deal.
Yes, and I don't think I mentioned this to you earlier when we spoke, but there was a tweet that went out. Somebody confirmed that Kellyanne tried to approach Nancy at the end of this so-called meeting, and Nancy was like, "Girl, I don't speak to the staff. I only speak to the president."
Directly.
Boom.
She laid it down. She did. And, if there was ever a movie that I would play a woman in, I want to be that woman in the Nancy Pelosi story when she's taking down Donald Trump. So Donald Trump had a bad day. Donald Trump Jr. had a bad day because, as you heard there, his father just implicated him in a felony because he perjured himself when he testified under oath in front of the various committees that he's done so before. And we want to make it an even extra special day for Donald Trump Jr. today, because we have even more not great news about his testimony that he seems to have lied again to Congress. So that's coming up in our news flash. We're calling the segment Wash and Fold because it's about money laundering, and I spent a lot of time on this graphic, as you can tell, because I really know this is going to come up a lot on the show. There's a lot of money laundering, a ton of money laundering.
I can't
in
take
this
credit
story.
for some of these awesome graphics
it's-
because you nailed them.
I honestly, I get really into them. I'm a frustrated artist or something, but it's also maybe my way of venting my frustration at the universe. So today we got a good look for the first time at the search warrants used when Michael Cohen's offices were raided, when his tapes were taken away from him, and when his apartment was raided. And it's a really interesting document. And it's one of those things that, you wouldn't think would be that interesting because it's just a search warrant. It's not even an indictment or anything like that. But boy, oh boy, did we learn some things. We learned some things about this
We
man.
sure did.
And for one thing, we have now learned of an array of Russian entities, let's call them, that Michael Cohen was basically taking bribes from. I mean, you can call it other things. You could say it was consulting if you want. That's what he called it. But it's basically bribes. Because
It's going to take us several days to go through
Which-
all of the connections and bribes
it
that
is.
Michael was taking.
and there are so many of them, and they
But-
tie so directly to Donald Trump's universe that it's kind of shockingly badly done because it's so obvious. And we'll give you an example of that in a second. But one of the things that we found out is that before Election Day, Michael Cohen had no idea who Andrew Intrater was. No idea at all. After Election Day, after Donald Trump won, they became really good friends. Take a look at this. So between Election Day or the day after Election Day and I guess I don't know how long it took them, but they had 230 calls and exchanged 950 text messages between the two of them, which is an extraordinary amount for people who just met each other. And they did that under the auspices of, and this is the second point, I'm not reading this in any particular order, of a consulting deal, a $500,000 consulting deal, which is a lot of money. Intraday.
I didn't even know that, Michael Cohen was a consultant. Apparently he became one on Election Day.
He became one on, he actually set up a company. It was called
Essentials.
Essential Consulting, because it is Essential
Consulting,
Consulting.
LLC.
Yeah, and it was set up in Delaware, I think, and it started operating quite quickly. It was set up, according to the banks at least, as a real estate company, and he was going to invest or bank with them from high-end proceeds from the high-end sale of real estate. Which, of course, it wasn't really high-end real estate. It was high-end secrets and top secrets and classified material from various companies and maybe even a bribe, as we've been saying. So $500,000 is what Intrada's company, Columbus Nova, paid him for a half a year's worth of consulting. And then they had this very close relationship. In fact, it was so close, Michael Cohen could even walk into the offices without a security card being signed in. He had his own security clearance right the way through. And he even was going to get his own office there. I don't know if he ever got his own office, but wouldn't that be something for Michael Cohen, the lawyer of the President of the United States, working for Andrew Intrada. And Intrada is, by the way, Victor Vekselberg's nephew, who is a well-known oligarch.
Is it his nephew or his cousin? They're related. I have to double check.
It's Russia. I think everyone's related.
It's going to be one of these shows tonight, Sam.
It is already. They did work together, and apparently it's quite a fruitful consultancy. And it's not the only. There were 4 other big entities. Some of them Russian, most of them Russian. One of them was a Korean aeronautics company, KAY, which also landed up later on buying or providing fighter jets to the Pentagon, just by accident happened to be the same company, I'm sure. And there's a Kazakhstani
I think what's most interesting is this bank, and this is how we're going to get into a little bit of the story of Don Jr.
Thank you for that setup. I was getting there this way.
I've always gotcha. Always gotcha.
So there's a Kazakhstani bank. It's like a lot of things in Kazakhstan, not very up and up. It's called BTA. They had a really serious money laundering problem when they discovered that they had overvalued or undervalued, I guess, $10 billion worth of property. They'd lost $10 billion. So a little bit of investigation went on. Turns out it was part of a wash and fold money laundering scheme. So these guys in the middle here, it's a little bit of a family intrigue, but I'll try to tell you this as best as I can. The guy on the left, Albayazov, is an oligarch in Kazakhstan because they have them there as well. And his daughter is the one right next to him there, Krapunov. Well, she's not Krapunov. The guy she's married to is Krapunov, and that's Elvis down below her. So it's not really Elvis. Elvis is his nickname. Elvis or something is his real name. And he's
You mean Elvis isn't dead? Okay.
Elvis is not only dead, he's laundering money. He's laundering money from the Kazakhstani banks and into Trump real estate, because that's what we found out today. And I think people knew this. I mean, some of us had a closer idea that this was happening. But I don't know if we've officially ever known or publicly ever expressed the fact that the Soho Trump Tower, which was built by Felix Sater and Bayrock, and Donald Trump Jr., Donald Trump, who was they were just licensing the name, as we know they did with the Trump Towers. But that building was funded by Kazakhstani money that was sort of clean. It had already been brought into the country and it was had been washed away. But there was new Kazakhstani money, which was this money that was taken out of the BTA bank, that was also invested into it, and I don't think we knew that before. I think we only found that out today. And not only did we only find it out today, these guys also owned several condos in that building. So Felix Sater helped, let me put up this beautiful poster that's really easy for everyone to understand, of these guys in the middle take this $10 billion and they somehow bring it down to $440 million, which is what Elvis landed up owning. And Elvis contacts Felix Sater, who takes part of that millions of dollars and invests it in American property, including the Soho Trump Tower. So in effect, what we know now is that the Trumps, through Felix Sater, were engaged in what looks like a deal, a property development deal, with Kazakhstani criminals who had stolen money from their people and a bank. So that's a story.
Who happened to be mentioned in the Cohen raid documents.
Yes, and I mean, and this is actually, it's a terrific investigation that the great folk at the OCCRP, which is a great website, go check it out, were able to discover for a while ago. This has been swirling around sort of the money laundering journalism circles for a long time, but it's never been like, it belongs to the Trump world. And it finally was today. And we're telling you about it first, I'm sure, here. I don't think it's been reported anywhere else. So there you go. You're welcome. But it gets even better because the Trump Soho was also under investigation for another reason. Ivanka and Donald Jr., who were very much involved in building and selling the Trump Tower, the Trump Soho, were under investigation at one point. You remember Cyrus Vance, who's the DA in New York, Manhattan. He had begun an investigation against Ivanka and Don Jr. on this very issue of whether Trump Soho was a bit dodgy financially, and whether they were overinflating the sale rate, which they were, to other new prospective buyers. They got off. They got off because Dad paid $25,000 to Cyrus Vance's re-election campaign. That's really it. That's why the whole thing was dropped. But you know what's interesting? You know what's really interesting, Tracy? Is the story has legs, because when Don Jr. was testifying before a congressional committee in the recent past, I can't give you the exact date, he was asked this very question: do you know who Viktor Krapunov is? And they even spelled it out for you. And I may have got the spelling right in my poster. That's Elvis's father that they're talking about here. and he said, I do not. Then the question followed up, do you know if he had any condominiums in Trump Soho? And he says, he may, but I don't know. Now, I bet you...
I'm going to go out on a limb here, Zev, and say that's a lie.
It's got to be a lie, because he was very, very, very much involved in the build of Trump Soho, and he would have known who the investors were because he would have met them. Plus 3 or 4 condos, however many that these guys bought, would have been very noticeable. Plus it was Felix Sater, who's their direct business partner, that was bringing in that money. And I'm sure Felix came in and said, "Hey, look at me! I got sold 20 million or 30 million worth of condos today." So my guess is he did know about it, and he was lying, quite possibly, in that testimony that he was giving. Before Congress, which would have been
I have a feeling he may be questioned about that again by the House Democrats.
I think it's going to be at the Senate Intel Committee when he's been called back. He's been called back for that re-airing of some issues because they have some questions.
Yes, and he's tried to negotiate which topics can be covered.
He's got 6 topics, right? I bet you that's one of the topics. I bet you they want to know what he knows about the Kazakhstani investment, and maybe that's why we got a little look at the documents today. So Donald Trump Jr. did not have a good day today because his father possibly confessed to the fact that he lied, and because we're telling you right now that we think he lied around the fact that the Kazakhstanis invested so much money in the Trump Soho. That's that segment. So there you go. We have 2 more things to do, and one of the most important things we have to do is the tweet of the day. Wow, I love that.
I do
full
too.
on energy. So
the music just like I'm dancing in my seat. I know you don't care, but I am dancing in my seat.
I love seeing you dancing. It's been that kind of day. You want to dance today. I want to dance today. Donald Trump may even want to dance today. Not. Nancy Pelosi wants to dance today. Anyway, the tweet of the day. We do this every day because it's a tradition of 2 days now. But it will be a tradition we do every day. We're going to declare who the winner of the tweet of the day is. And today's winner of the tweet of the day is...
Yes, I am giving the winner to Tom Joseph, who I follow. It's at Tom J Chicago. And he was responding to the crybaby temper tantrum press conference that Trump gave in the Rose Garden, and he said, it's going to get pretty crazy because Trump will keep talking, like Jack Nicholson in A Few Good Men. You're goddamn right I conspired with Russia.
Wow.
Okay, you're welcome.
You've
You're
missed
welcome,
You've
Seth.
missed your calling.
You're welcome.
You're so good. So next week on The Sopranos, that was really terrific. Thank you, Tom. I'll be following you, and hopefully we can be in touch. And everyone else should follow you because you're funny. And that's the tweet of the day for today. We have a couple of other things we want to mention. It's also 6 days left in our Patreon campaign, where we're asking people to join Patreon, join Narrative on Patreon, which is really important because, you know, it does take a lot of effort and money and everything to make these shows happen, and all the other content we provide you. And, you know, we're sort of wanting to make sure this guy goes out of office. I mean, it's not a secret if you've been following us for the last 2.5 years that there's something really wrong with what's going on right now, and has been for the last couple of years, and that's why we've invested our lives into this, and we hope you'll support us. The membership started as little as $3 a month, so it's not really that much, and it all goes a long way to making our lives a little saner. And
you know, Zev, if somebody would have told me on election night in 2016, you're going to be spending 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, exposing the corruption in Donald Trump and his administration, I would have laughed. Yeah. Now I'm like, bring it on. Are there 25 hours in a day? Let's get this going.
It's so true. I mean, we just sort of like, you know, that night we went from like, you know, we went into an alternative universe, and suddenly we're existing somewhere else where, you know, if you care about the world, my life just had to become that, because I just couldn't. You know, if you're a journalist, like, you just want to get at the story, and we've been getting at it, and we will continue to get at it. So please, if you can, patreon.com/narrative, sign up for a membership. You'll get to see, hear more of us, and be part of a terrific community of people who are helping us do what we do. We leave everyone every day with a quote from the founders. Do you want to take this one, Tracy? If you can read it.
Yes, and this one is from James Madison. He said, the day will come when our republic will be an impossibility because wealth will be concentrated in the hands of a few. When that day comes, we must rely upon the wisdom of the best elements in the country to readjust the laws of the nation.
Boom. He nailed that. He
did nail it.
Who are the better elements? Good luck to finding them. There's at least 23 or 33 running. How many people are running now for the?
Wow, I'm trying to keep up so we can report on all of them, but I'm not even sure anymore.
You know what I'm really interested in? We should do a little bit of investigation about this. So they've got to all fight now for space on the debate night. So they get cut off at the bottom end. And so it's probably getting a little nasty. I mean, as much as these people love and respect each other, I'm sure they're all still wanting to win.
And I believe June 26th in Miami is the first DNC debate.
Ooh, we should cover that. We will. Yeah. We'll give you live coverage right here if we can. So that's going to be interesting. We'll cover that in a future show. We've got lots more coming up in the next few days related to Michael Cohen's testimony, because we just couldn't even begin to scratch the surface today. That search warrant is gold, and we have lots of stuff to report on that. The week ahead is going to be really interesting. I think we're going to find out a lot about what's finally going to be shared. I think Donald Trump's going to wake up tomorrow morning and say, ooh, what did I do? And someone in his administration and his staff are going to say, you got to stop, and we got to cooperate a little bit because you're acting like a petulant child who's throwing his toys out the cot, and you can't do that because you're still the leader of this country. I can live in hope.
We'll know about 7 a.m. when we start reading his tweets on Twitter about how that works or not, Zeb.
Okay. Well, you know, if he's watching, which I'm sure he doesn't, it's a good idea. Think about it. Life will be happier for everybody. That's all I got. Anything else from you, Tracy? I think we're sort of out of
I'm excited to get back to work and see y'all tomorrow.
Cheers, everybody. Have a good night. We leave you
good night
with a little inspiration.
Our founding fathers drafted a charter to assure the rule of law and the rights of man.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth.
Those ideals still light the world. And and we will not give them up for expedience sake.
Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi, from every mountain.
America is the land where dreams can come true for all of us.
When we allow freedom ring,
Flags of freedom fly all over Europe.
from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every freedom.
Walk
We
together.
will be able to speed up that day when all the children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles,
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
we at last